back to the Jewish Awareness Ministries School of Biblical and Jewish Studies as we continue our study in the subject of the Antichrist. We've looked at some different things about him, the timeline of events that take place in the narrative of the Antichrist, but also some names that he is called in the Scripture. Now we're going to look at some things about his character, about who he really is, kind of dive a little bit deeper and to see some of the motives behind what he does and the things that characterize him as the Antichrist. So in Daniel chapter 7, we see that the Antichrist has great speaking ability. It says, "And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things." The Antichrist is not going to be just the average run-of-the-mill politician or somebody that comes to power, but he is going to speak just monumentous things. Great not in the sense of good, morally, but just incredible things, things that are audacious, things that are amazing to hear. He is going to speak these things, and people are going to listen. He is going to command their attention. We see a similar statement in Revelation 13, verses 4 and 5, where it says, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast." And so one of the things that happens to him, we talked about this in a different lesson, is that he has a deadly wound, a fatal wound, that is healed. "And they worshiped the dragon," which is Satan, "which gave power unto the beast," which is the Antichrist. "And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months, which is 3.5 years, that second portion of the tribulation period. And so we see that the Antichrist is not only going to speak immense things, groundbreaking things, things that are just crazy claims, but also he is going to speak blasphemy. He is going to be against God. Like we saw in the definition of the word Antichrist, means that he is not only against Christ, but also trying to replace Christ. And so everything that the Antichrist does and says, with this great speaking ability, speaking great things, he is also going to speak incredibly blasphemous things against the one true God. We also see that he's going to have crafty political talents. In the book of Daniel, chapter 9, it says that the Antichrist will confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. He's going to be able to pull off this deal with Israel and her enemies. And they're going to come to an agreement to where they agree to his parameters. No one in the history of the world has been able to pull off such a covenant. And yet the Antichrist will be able to do so. He's going to be able to maneuver and to use his different tactics to be able to get this agreement, this covenant, to come into place. We see a similar idea also in the book of Revelation, chapter 17, verses 12, 13, and 17. "The 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings." We spoke about this in the origin, the background of the Antichrist, that he was going to arise out of the revived Roman Empire, and that he is going to come out of a confederation of 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. He's going to be able to consolidate all of this power from various leaders that are part of this confederation. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. You see, God is allowing certain things to happen. Much like we see Satan in the book of Job and elsewhere, he's not allowed to do anything unless he has God's permission first. And so the things that we see take place during the time of Jacob's trouble, the tribulation period, the Antichrist is doing things. He is working his own agenda. And God is allowing these things to happen. We see a certain example of that here in Revelation 17, with these 10 kings giving their power unto the Antichrist to bring everything to a certain end, which God is allowing to be orchestrated like a masterful game of chess. Strong physical appearance. The Antichrist is not only going to be unique in his speaking ability and the things that you hear coming from him, but also his actual physical appearance. It says in Daniel 7:20, "And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up," this is a beast that Daniel sees, okay, representing that last kingdom, the revived Roman Empire, and the Antichrist himself. "And of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows." The appearance of the Antichrist is going to be one that is intimidating, one that is commanding attention, and he's going to have this appearance we can't really fathom exactly, but it's going to be one that brings out fear, maybe it brings out admiration from this world and their leaders. Whatever it is, it's going to be a unique appearance that is perhaps stronger looking, more intimidating looking, more commanding than the world leaders that the Antichrist finds himself in the company of, more stout than his fellows. He will also be a military genius. In Daniel chapter 11, verse 40, it says, "Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain," the land of Israel. "And at that time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind." We talked about this in the events that happen regarding the Antichrist, defeating the kings of the south and the north, Egypt and Syria, respectively. "They come at him with chariots and horsemen, with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter also into the glorious land, the land of Israel. And many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon." All of these are in modern-day Jordan. "He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape." The Antichrist is going to command armies. He is going to have military endeavors. And in these things that he sets his mind to, commanding these armies, he is going to be victorious in many of them. He is going to command a military presence as he leads these armies to fulfill his agenda. We also see in the book of Revelation this idea of the Antichrist being a military genius. Chapter 13, "And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And so those that worship the Antichrist, they're going to say things like, "Who is even going to stand up against our leader? Who would dare go against him in a military setting?" "These shall make war with the Lamb," chapter 17, "and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful." The Antichrist is going to make war with the Lamb himself. He is going to go against, literally, Jesus and the armies that he comes with at his second coming. "And I saw the beast," Revelation 19, "and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse, and against his army. And so the Antichrist is going to have military prowess. He is going to be courageous in this way and seeking to fulfill all of his desires regarding military conquest, which includes trying to subvert and conquer the Lamb and his armies, which we know that the Antichrist is going to utterly fail at this when Jesus destroys him with the word of his mouth. He appears to be a moral person. Now this is interesting. When we look at this verse from 2 Corinthians, and this is quoted from Dave Hunt's book, Global Peace and the Rise of the Antichrist, we can understand that the Antichrist, although a vile person, although he is known as that wicked, although he is known as the man of sin, he's going to have this outward superficial appearance of a cloak of morality. This quote from Dave Hunt: Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness. He's quoting there from 2 Corinthians 11. Nor is the Antichrist an ordinary minister of Satan. We may therefore be certain that he will appear as the purest angel of light that Satan can produce. So if Satan himself and his demons appear as ministers of righteousness, angels of light, they have this disguise, so to speak. Should not the Antichrist follow the same suit and yet be the epitome of that appearance, as he is Satan incarnate, embodied? So when the Antichrist comes on the scene, much like those that rule in this world today, he is going to have an appearance on the surface of being a moral person. But just barely under the surface, he is going to be the most wicked, most vile, most sinful person that this earth has ever seen. But he will have a cloak of morality. He will be materialistic and power-hungry. This is an interesting verse in Daniel 11, where it says, But in his estate he shall honor the God of forces, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver, precious stones, pleasant things. When it says his estate shall he honor the God of forces, the Antichrist is not going to be bowing down and literally worshiping like the patron saint of forces. That's not what it's getting at. He is going to be worshiping as an idol, so to speak, in his heart. He is going to be worshiping, the Hebrew word for forces is strongholds. It's fortress. And so he is literally going to be worshiping power, strength, his fortress, his stronghold. And when it says that he's going to honor with gold and silver, precious stones, pleasant things, I don't believe that he's going to be giving as an offering, as a sacrifice to this God of forces. I believe he's going to be putting all of his money, all of his power, precious stones, pleasant, he's going to be putting that all towards his God of strength, his God of power, his God of literally fortress, stronghold. That is what he is going to worship. His own power, his own strength, his own fortress, his own stronghold, his own empire, if you will. In Revelation 13, we see that the Antichrist is a blasphemer. And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. Power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. The Antichrist, like I mentioned before, is against God. He's against Christ. And when he opens his mouth speaking great things, he is going to speak blasphemies, to blaspheme God's name, to blaspheme everything that is connected with the one true God, trying to subvert and even replace who the true God is. He will try to change prophecy and history in Daniel chapter 7. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. And that's again speaking of that second half of the tribulation period, 3.5 years, from the midpoint where he goes into the temple and proclaims himself to be God and causes all to worship him and to take his mark. Substitutes himself for God. I have 2 verses here, Daniel 11 and 2 Thessalonians 2. And the king shall do according to his will. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any god, for he shall magnify himself above all. The Antichrist is going to care only about himself. He's going to magnify himself. He's going to not even regard any god, not even have admiration for women. He is going to be so singularly focused on himself and his own power that he is going to be blinded to everything else. He himself is going to basically be worshiping himself as a god. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Again, the midpoint of the tribulation period, this occurs. The Antichrist is going to be doing all of these things. And we see a little bit deeper after this lesson into his character, his motives, who he is, and what he does. In the upcoming lessons, we will see some of the things that the Antichrist does that lead to his ultimate demise and his destiny. We'll see you in the next class. Shalom.